All right, and here they are, two of my absolute favorites from anywhere in the world. They just happen to be from the land down under. It is my boys, the NFL at Aussie Guys NFL, AJ and G. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, hey, how you going?
Good,
Randers,
man.
Memphis, thanks for having me. I always call you Randers, which people go, what the hell are they talking about?
It's Trailer Park Boys.
It is.
It's been what you've called me since Sheps. I mean, we can that's not a dirty word here. Since the days of Sheps. It's from the American, I think it's an American TV show.
Yes.
Trailer Park Boys, and there's a character named Sweet Randers, and that's what you guys have affectionately called me for years. I've known you guys for over 4 years, and we've been doing this Sunday show for a while. You guys know it as the Rookie Rundown. We might talk about a rookie or two, I don't know, but we are going to talk about some guys who have had their dynasty stock rise and dynasty stock fall. Thank you guys for jumping on with me while my normal co-host Dallas is out gallivanting around celebrating his graduation from grad school. We're very proud of him. He's like a brain surgeon, like some kind of super smart, highly educated young man. He's out, having some fun with his buddies at the
Unlike
lake.
the two guys you have on now.
Well, I know AJ happens to be highly intelligent. He's got all the things on the wall. He runs a very prestigious school for children in the Australia area. G, on the other hand, we'll get into that in the body of the show. But what's been going on with you guys, man? I'll start with AJ. AJ, what's been going on with you and the Aussie guys?
Not a hell of a lot. We're back in lockdown here in Melbourne, as those in Victoria will know, and it's hopefully, touch wood, a short lockdown, although the list of exposure sites is quite large, so we just have to see. Who knows? But otherwise, it's just sort of been business as usual, and I've been just kind of enjoying the teaching year, and I think most people here just kind of enjoying a slice of life that's pretty much back to normal, or it was back to normal. But nothing, besides that, nothing very exciting. I hate to say, but...
Well, that's a very, very nice Chargers hat. For those watching on YouTube or live on Twitter, he is wearing, it looks like that was an original San Diego Chargers hat. But,
no.
Actually,
it might have been late, very late. It probably was, the year before they left. I do have a Herbert jersey in the mail.
Man, it's funny. I was talking to Will Harris from Viridian Global, our apparel sponsor, and he said he was packaging up a list of things to get to an Australian depot to get some of our merchandise out to some of our fans in Australia. Speaking of our merchandise, a guy who's been helping me work on some really sweet new designs. I've got to get some kind of special file. I don't know. I don't speak nerd, but this guy does, and he does a lot of these sweet shirts. We've got the Fantasy Sniper shirt coming. We got some other themed shirts coming. This guy is Mr. G of the Aussies. G. Now you on the other hand, you had a wrist injury from a bicycling accident. You were just getting ready to go back to work, and now you're back in lockdown. How are you holding up?
Mate, I tell you, it's quite a weird thing. Like at first, I have to do something all the time. It's just my nature as a person. And the first couple of days after I broke one bone in my thumb 4 times. It split into 4. I had a displaced fracture and 3 chip bones all in one hand. So I did a good job. So if you're going to do things, do it properly. But I tell you, mate, by the end of 8 weeks, I sort of got into I don't mind this staying at home sort of deal. This is good. But, went back to work for 1 week and then we're in lockdown. So, I needed a rest after that first week back. But, yeah, mate, talking about the tops and the designs of that, mate, I'm looking forward to that royalty check every month coming now, Randers.
Hey, man, you got to help me promote it. There is no royalties if there is no sales. That's how this works.
Okay.
It's not step 1, design shirt. Step 2, profit. There's some work in between that we're going to get onto. But the work we're going to get onto tonight was we're going to talk about some, the smoke is settled. The dust is, cleared, if you will. I think I got those backwards. But it is what it is. We know where the rookies have landed. We know where the free agents have landed. And some guys have to go up your dynasty ranks. Some guys have to go down. So let's start. Let's end the show on a high note. We'll talk about some guys that we're high on. I'm gonna kick it back to G. G, who was a guy that, in light of everything that happened during the off season, because the off season's basically over. The next time we see our favorite NFL teams, they're going to be in mini camp, and then they're going to be in regular camp. So G, take it away.
Okay, mate. Well, I was going to bring all positive to the show, but then he texted me this morning and said, like, we have to have the yin yang, we have to have the negative as well. I didn't want to bring negative to the show because there's so much of that in Melbourne at the moment. But let's go with the positive. And mate, I tried not to go for the also obvious, and I think AJ will have done similar. It's how we roll. But Danielle Mooney, I think, is a guy that I like based on what we saw last year. He's on a team with, let's face it, it's a pretty shallow wide receiving room, and one of those guys would probably be traded. And Anthony Miller, I think they just want to move on from him at some stage. So it puts him at number 2 on the depth charts behind Allen Robinson, obviously. They didn't take a receiver until the 6th round, and that's Daz Newsome, and he's more of a slot guy. So the biggest reason he's a winner is because they improved the quarterback position. You know, with a guy in Justin Fields that some people had, you know, a lot of experts had as like the number 2 quarterback in this draft field. So you add quarterback, you take bad quarterback play away. The guy who's now throwing the ball, Justin Fields, finished second after his college. What would you call it? His college
career. His college career.
Yeah, career. It's only short, but yeah, who was second in 20-yard bombs, and third in air yards at 71.2%. So, mate, you got a guy that's not afraid to throw the ball downfield, who can throw the ball downfield and can hit his target, which is Danielle Mooney hasn't had in his first season. I think if you go back and have a look at the tape, which I did, mate, there's a lot of times it was open and balls were overthrown. So I just think Danielle Mooney all around. I think the whole offense now in Chicago is on an upward spiral. If you believe in what Justin Fields can do,
do you
and
think
that's what you have to
Justin
take into account.
Yeah, not trying to cut you off, but do you think
That's
Justin
all right.
Fields is the week 1 starter in Chicago, or do you believe? Because I've heard some theories floated out there that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy want to get the season off to start with Andy Dalton, because they see Justin Fields as the thing that saves their job there in Chicago. Yes. And you know, if they let him sit on the bench for a while, then it'll extend them at least another year. It's just a theory, but my larger question is, do you see him as the week 1 starter, or do you see him coming in mid-season in relief?
I've read exactly the same thing. You're probably right. You probably will find that Andy Dalton will start the season, but this is Dynasty we're talking here, isn't it? So this is long term. So this is a long term view for me. And if you look at what Danielle Mooney has already done in his rookie season, he's had the most receptions by a late round picked up rookie, because he was taken 173rd in the draft. That's the most since Marquise Colston in 2006. And there's only 4 guys ahead of him in the last 3 seasons that have had more receptions by a rookie, and they are Chase Claypool, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, and CD Lamb. So, and that's with bad quarterback play. So I think if you want to go and grab someone, I think he'd be pretty reasonably priced. Memphis, you could probably go and get him up, or just bundle him in there somewhere and just ask whoever you're asked to get him, put him as part of a package. You could probably lose him in there somewhere. Definitely a guy that I think is on the up. And you got to remember last year too, which has been a lot for the rookies last year, is he had no OTAs, he had no mini camp, and he had no preseason. So I think it's all just positive.
And Allen Robinson is on his 2nd franchise tag. And the
Yes.
odds of him getting a third are not very good. So he could be going into, again, you mentioned this is Dynasty. He could be going into 2022 as the only real receiver outside of maybe Cole Kmet that's had any reps with Justin Fields as the quarterback. So I think that's a great call. Now, AJ, what do you think about Mr. Darnell Mooney? And then who's a guy that you're either up or down on?
Love the Danielle Mooney pick. That is brilliant. Very high on the possibilities in Chicago, and we know a Bears fan should be pretty happy with the Justin Fields move. I'm gonna give you actually I guess you've got some, Randy, as well, and I'm going to play the draft game here and try and snipe you on one because my other one I'm betting you don't have. So I might snipe you on MPJ. MPJ, who Randy is familiar with.
MPJ. I'm thinking of DP. I'm thinking Donovan people. Who am I missing here?
Michael Pittman Jr.
Oh, I did. All right, you got me with the junior. Listen. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. The Colts need a breakout presence, and as much as I like T.Y. Hilton, and as interesting as I think Paris Campbell could be, we need someone in MPJ. Tell me your thoughts on Michael Pittman.
Well, he seems to be, in looking at startup ADP this offseason and just generally what's happening in the trade market, etc. He's not getting a lot of respect, although it's building. It is building, I would say. And I'm trying to get as many shares of Michael Pittman as I possibly can, because I think once the season kicks off, then his ADP is going to go through the roof, and it's going to be well nigh impossible. Look, he's the number one in that offense. He's the X guy. I mean, T.Y.'s best days are behind him. There's no doubt there. Obviously, is an upgrade, Carson Wentz over old man spaghetti arm Phil Rivers, who obviously I have a ton of respect for myself, but he was done, and he just couldn't he couldn't feed someone like Michael Pittman. They didn't sign a free agent wide receiver, which is a big rubber stamp of approval from Frank Reich in Michael Pittman. And Frank Reich did say after the 2020 draft that he thought that Michael Pittman was the best wide receiver in the draft. They did pick him before JT as well. His competition target, I mean, will be TY, but as I said, I think TY is, he's in the twilight of his career, and probably Nyheim Hines. And then, but beyond that, there's not a lot of competition for targets. I mean, I'm actually a big rap for Mo Alley Cox kind of stepping up, but old man Jack Doyle, forget about. And Paris Campbell, who is a bit of an unknown. I kind of like him, but, that's it. That's it. We're talking about the backfield. We're talking about JT and Hines, and then we're talking about TY and Paris Campbell, and then big question marks at tight end. I mean, Mo Alley probably in the end zone a little bit, but that's it. And we're talking about also a quarterback in Carson Wentz who can definitely hit an X receiver without any trouble. I think it's a recipe for success. And I looked at his Fantasy Pros ADP, and it's got to be wrong. It's got to be wrong. They actually have him as wide receiver 62, with the likes of N'Keal Harry, Brashard Perriman ahead of him, which is ridiculous. That's an error. And players just behind him. Hunter Renfrow was 63. Curtis Samuel was 64. Mind you, I think Curtis Samuel deserves more respect than that as well. But that's just ludicrous. So you can expect him to jump 20, 30 spots, I think, once the season really gets underway.
And I was looking while you were giving us the breakdown on Pittman, I was looking at the Frank Reich offense with 3 years of being the head coach and the play caller. The first year with Andrew Luck, over 600 pass attempts. 2 years ago with an impromptu season of Jacoby Brissett, about 550. And last year with Uncle Phil Rivers, just over 550. And so you can see the volume, and you're right. It's really, someone's going to emerge as the volume hog in Indianapolis. And I was listening to, I want to give proper credit. It was the Roto Underworld, one of the Matt Kelly podcasts, and he had on Matt Harmon, famous for reception perception. And he hit him with, do you prefer Paris Campbell or Michael Pittman? And his response was Michael Pittman, and it didn't sound like it was remotely close. And Matt Harmon's got a pretty good track record of picking out breakout wide receivers. You know, his most famous one was Allen Robinson. And I hope he's correct. I hope they both break out, to be honest. Similar draft capital, both second-round NFL picks. But I want to jump over to one of my guys. And one of my guys is one of your guys. Now, it feels like we planned this behind the scenes. You know, AJ's pumping up a Colt. I'm a Colts fan. I am going to take my turn, and I'm going to go a little bit bigger name. And the guy that I have is Justin Herbert. So in my rankings, I've been doing rankings over at, and by the way, rankings are a labor of love. And because I love our patrons, I do rankings for our patrons. Because it takes, if you want to do them the way that I think they deserve to be done, it takes a long time. It really does. And I have Justin Herbert as my QB3 in a startup. So if your name is not Patrick Mahomes and your name is not Josh Allen, then I don't have you ahead of Justin Herbert. I mean, just so much stuff. I mean, he set like all the rookie records last year. Didn't even play an entire game, and his first game was due to a punctured lung that shouldn't have been a punctured lung because of a needle, and it's a weird story. But, you know, they improved the offensive line. They brought over Pro Bowl guard in Corey Linsley. They drafted Rashawn Slater in the first round. That was a great addition. And they did lose Hunter Henry, but they did add Jared Cook, who's going to be a nice bridge to a guy that in tight end premium, by the way, side note that I'm stashing. I am stashing Trey McKitty, easy for me to say. Trey McKitty, tight end out of Georgia, not Donald Parham. I know a lot of people have been talking Donald Parham, but I believe that Trey McKitty could be the bridge. And I like this offense, and I know people are concerned with the defensive-minded Brandon Staley. He's only been a coach in the NFL for a handful of years. But I love Brandon Staley. I think he's an incredibly intelligent guy. And he played quarterback at the University of Dayton. And it's for those reasons that I think Justin Herbert is just going to take a huge leap. And by the way, another guy that I liked, it's the small thing, is Josh Palmer out of the University of Tennessee. Again, they continue to surround him. Now, hold on. I'm going to let G jump in. For those of you watching on YouTube or on Twitter, you can see that G wanted to talk the minute I said Josh Palmer. And I got... Go ahead.
AJ, I think AJ is wanting maybe this guy to end up.
Julio.
Oh, he wants Julio. Now I see what you were doing on the video with the two face. I thought you were telling me I was number one. I thought he was telling me I was number one twice. I misunderstood. G, I'll ask you one. What would you think if one of your favorites? We're not going to talk much Falcons tonight, but what are you going to do if one of your favorites lands in LA with Justin Herbert?
And talking about Julio, obviously. Look, I've got to the point now where, you know, a 32-year-old wide receiver, the Falcons are going nowhere. Just, you know, if he leaves, he goes, and if we can get something for it, that's great, because we've just got to look towards the future. But you did mention Josh Palmer, and I like Josh Palmer. AJ actually texted me after he was drafted saying, "Who the hell is Josh Palmer?" But I think he's a great addition to, and it's only going to help Justin Herbert for sure. He's an outside guy. He's physical. He's very switched on. If you go and look at some of his highlights, I mentioned in our rookie chat with Matt Waldman, one of the things I liked about him is that he went up for a ball and he had so much awareness of where he was on the ground that he actually turned his ankle so his toes pointed in, so when he landed, he wouldn't be out of bounds. It's just, if that's going on inside your head while you're trying to catch a ball, it just shows a good level of intelligence. But yeah, I really like the Justin Herbert one, Randers, and especially AJ, for a guy that was very upset when he was drafted by the Chargers. It's amazing how things can turn around so quickly, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. AJ, I mean, obviously, so I want to hear your story. So you were a little bit bummed when they initially took Herbert. Now you have to be loving life. You talked about you've got a Herbert jersey heading from the States to you. How are your feelings about Herbert now versus maybe 12 months ago?
Oh, well, it's a no-brainer, obviously. They lucked out. They hit the jackpot on Herbert. And, look, drafting a quarterback is a tough game for an NFL GM. It can be a coin toss. I must admit to not being necessarily, and not that I've got a great eye for quarterback play, but I wasn't necessarily very impressed with Justin Herbert in college. And I had sparkles in my eyes for Tua, and I wanted that Tua excitement, that traveling circus, to come down to LA. And I thought that would have been a brilliant PR move as well. But I mean, there's no better PR move than to have a rookie like Justin Herbert. Let's be frank. I mean, it's just that Tua was like that shiny new toy. But and I still believe in Tua, but obviously, how can you not be happy with Justin Herbert? He's been just a fantastic pickup.
I was listening to Greg Cosell, and if you love film grinding, Greg Cosell's like the godfather of modern NFL film grinding, and he was talking about that if Justin Herbert was in this class with Trevor Lawrence, he's like, it would be a hard selection for a lot of GMs in the NFL, knowing what we know today. That's how high that a guy that I have a lot of respect for his game has Justin Herbert, and I obviously think highly of him as well because I have him ahead of Herbert. Now, Dak, by the way, Dak continues to be my 4. I'm not going to get too deep in the rankings, but I think LA has got a very bright future, and I think this defense is going to be nasty. I cannot wait to see what happens in the AFC West, and if for some reason, by some miracle, I don't think it'll happen, I really don't, but if for some reason Aaron Rodgers lands in Denver, man, you're going to have Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers in the AFC West, and you'd have to love that if you're in the NFC. But we've talked about some guys that we're high on. G, do you have a guy who's maybe dipping in your rankings just a little bit?
Sound, G, you're muted.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, you were. You're good. You're good. He muted himself. He's pulling a Jerry.
All right. Am I good? Am I good? Okay. So we're going to switch. Are we going to come back to a positive after a negative? Oh, beautiful. All right. So, mate, I'm going to put 3 guys in a bundle for a negative, and the 3 wide receivers. And the reason they're all bundled together is the fact that the same thing has happened to all 3 guys on different. Probably on different levels, but basically the same thing. And these are guys that the team acquired a well-known receiver, and they also went and drafted one high. So those 3 guys are Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder, and Christian Kirk. So obviously the Giants, the acquisition was Kenny Golladay, and they went and drafted Kadarius Toney. For Jamison Crowder, it was Corey Davis and Elijah Moore. And for Christian Kirk, it was Rondell Moore and AJ Green. So 3 guys whose stock has dropped and have done exactly the same thing, which is incredible. But, Shepard's going to be hurt by the fact that with Golladay there, it's not only Golladay, they also went and got Dante Pettis, who was high on, but it's just the bringing more and more receivers and pass catchers into the Giants to give Daniel Jones as much opportunity as they can. So someone has to pay the price of not getting the ball. So you still got Evan Ingram there, obviously. You still got Darius Slayton there. So that wide receiver room is just getting pretty full, and that can only hurt the limited amount that Sterling Shepard was getting anyway is going to be reduced again. And look, is he a top flight guy? We'll know, but mate, your roster's made up of number 1s, number 2s, number 3s, and you all need them to do something for you. So Sterling Shepard's hurt. Jamison Crowder, he was the only guy on the Jets offense, and he's going to be hurt now, obviously, with Corey Davis, but he might be in there for pass blocking more than for run blocking more than anything else, because he seemed to do a fair bit of that when he was at the Titans. And then he plays out of the slot, and they go and grab Elijah Moore, and that's his gig. That's what he does. That's pretty much all he does. You've got a new coaching staff there, obviously, as well. You're going to have the second-year breakout of Denzel Mims, fingers crossed. They also brought in a running back who's a pass catcher in Michael Carter. And the fact also, too, is that he's got a salary cap hit this year of $11 million. So it might be a chance he might not even be on the team come the start of the season, because they're in the rebuilding stage as well. And the third guy, obviously, is Christian Kirk, who I was never a fan of coming out anyway. He's got those little T-Rex arms, which is really weird for a guy that plays on the outside. And you got the acquisition of AJ Green. Obviously, the outside guy, you've already got Hopkins there. And then they go and draft Rondale Moore with the 49th overall pick. And we all know that, Cliff Kingsbury, he wants to scheme up things. He wants players running everywhere. So someone's going to have to miss out. So obviously it's going to be between Christian Kirk and also who's the other little short dude there? They're all short in Arizona.
Isabella and
Isabella. And Isabella. So so it's just another crowded back wide receiving room in Arizona, and I just think Christian Kirk's going to be the guy who's going to get hurt by the acquisitions that they've made.
Well, the name that you talked about there was Kadarius Toney and the Giants, and I know people like to make fun of the clapper. I know we do, but I'm sitting here looking at Jason Garrett's offenses, and he has been, outside of the years that Tony Romo was injured, his offenses in points points on a season were in the top half of the league, including the year where he was second in points, seventh, sixth, seventh. So there is some fantasy upside in New York. Now, do I think Sterling Shepard's going to get any of it? Probably not. You kind of see the blueprint of what they're doing in New York. They want Kenny Golladay to play that Dez role on the outside. Mm-hmm. They want, Saquon Barkley to play that DeMarco Murray role.
Well, Des, what I didn't even include, catching balls out of the backfield too.
Yeah, and then don't forget that. I mean, he's not going to suck up a lot of volume, but any volume he does suck up is going to come at someone's expense. It's going to be Kyle Rudolph. And Kyle Rudolph plays that old man Jason Witten role. So it's not like he's not trying to recreate what's worked before. That's what coaches tend to do. Very few coaches have a new wrinkle. Some do. AJ, I'm going to throw it back to you. What do you think about some of the guys that G talked about? And then who's a guy maybe you're a little down on after the offseason?
Yeah, so instead of one faller, G gives you three. And I did have Sterling Shepard written down.
But they had to bundle it all together because it's just weird. They had all the same reasons why they were dropping. Or some of them might even disappear.
They are all brilliant. Although the one thing that I did say to G, because we were having a chat before this, is, I sort of sneakily like Jamison Crowder because I think that he is definitely getting cut. And he's a talented guy and he's cheap as chips. And he could land somewhere that spikes his value. Well, he may also not, but sometimes that's the kind of chance that you have to take in fantasy football, right? So you can go and acquire him for super cheap. I think he's 27 years old. He's a youngish guy.
He feels around like he's been around for like 500 years.
Well, it feels that way. Yeah, that's right. He's super productive. He doesn't get any respect.
If he ran out this season with grey hair, it wouldn't surprise me. That's how long it feels he's been around for.
And, I'm not saying that he could land in a Green Bay or an LA Chargers uniform or something like that. Or Chiefs, or add him into the Chiefs offense. Crowder lands in a place like that, his ADP is going to go through the absolute roof, and you would have paid next to nothing for him.
And there's a handful of spots like that. Like the Chiefs, that's a great call because outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, there's nothing behind those guys.
And it
I'm
ain't
not trying.
Harmon, I'm telling you now.
Hey, Cole Hardman, maybe he fires, but I doubt that he ever does. I want him to, but it's a very shallow
Yes.
room. So who was your guy, AJ? No, he mentioned some guys. Who are some of your guys?
Okay, so well, he mentioned Sterling Shepard. I had him written down, so I'll go to my next one. So I wrote down Logan Thomas. Now here's a guy who has got a fair bit of buzz around him this year. Obviously, he came a little bit out of left field last season and ended as the tight end 6, which is not, I'm not taking anything away from Logan Thomas, but hey, it's not that hard. Finish tight end 6, but he did. But it was a volume-based thing. He got a ton of volume. He actually had 110 targets. He had the third highest amount of targets. Now, the target share has increased. Target share, the target competition has increased. Obviously, you got Terry McLaurin and Gibson there, but adding Curtis Samuel, obviously, you got an upgrade in Fitzmagic, and we know that's obviously it's an upgrade. Dewami Brown, who is a talented rookie that they drafted. They've got the return. I mean, you can snigger, but they've got the return of Kelvin Harmon. And I'm just sort of saying, there are more pieces in this offense than you necessarily think of. But Logan Thomas was actually really inefficient. I wrote down 26th fantasy points per route run and 24th in fantasy points per target. He was super inefficient. He also was a quarterback, so he's had a bit of a strange road to tight end, and he's 30 years old, which also is something else from a dynasty perspective that people don't realize. Now that Washington defense is legit. That's a top 5 defense there, and I just don't see him necessarily getting the volume. I just don't think his targets is definitely going to regress. And also there's a lot more competition there, so I think he's going to plunge. Now, I'm not saying if you've got him, sell him necessarily, but, I wouldn't be sort of doing anything to acquire him.
I like Logan Thomas, but you mentioned a couple of things. One, how many of those 100+ targets that he got last year were the byproduct of the coaching staff calling that as a play for Logan Thomas, or was it just the fact that he operated closer to the line of scrimmage and that's what Alex Smith felt comfortable throwing? It's the same thing with J.D. McKissick and all the volume that he saw. But what does this offense look like with, again, Deami Brown? Obviously Terry McLaurin, that's my guy, goes without saying. And they did bring in Curtis Samuel, who also operates in that short to intermediate area like a Logan Thomas. And then they want to get Antonio Brown, who was a wide receiver in college. They want to get him more involved in the passing game. That volume is going to come at someone else's expense. And I think you're right. I think Logan Thomas. And don't forget that tight ends can appear one year and magically disappear the next. We call that the Gary Barnidge corollary. So I am going to jump into my guy. I want a little bit bigger, and for me, one of my biggest guys who took a hit in value. And again, it's just preseason, guys. Things can change. I update these rankings all the time over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. But for me, it's Deandre Swift. For me, Deandre Swift was my RB6 going into this offseason. And he comes out as my RB11. Now, that's still an RB1, and I still have him ahead of Miles Sanders, Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Zeke, Etienne, and Dobbins, so I still have him plenty high. My concerns is I don't like what I've seen to date with his usage. I don't like how his new offensive coordinator always used Austin Eckler. That's the role we want to see, Deandre Swift in, is the 2019 version of Austin Eckler, where he finished as a top 5 back. And I think that's completely within the range of outcomes for Deandre Swift because of the PPR upside. But I don't like the fact that there are currently 6 running backs under contract on the Lions, and they're kicking tires on Todd Gurley. I don't trust I do like the offensive line upgrade. So for right now, if we see some camp video and we see some camp footage, I update my rankings all the time. So for me, it's not so much that I don't like the player, guys. It's the same thing. I'll just kind of lump this into a Jalen Hurts conversation as well. Part of this for me is a serious lack of confidence in how I think this coaching staff's going to use him. In both cases, with Swift and with Hurts, we got a rookie coaching staff. So all the numbers that you want to throw at me from last year mean two things: jack and shit. Because I don't know what a Dan Campbell and an Anthony Lynn offense is going to look like. I don't know what a Nick Sirianni offense and a Shane Steichen offense is going to look like in Philadelphia. I don't know. And for me to sit here and pretend like I do would be dishonest. And I don't trust the front office, because it's not like they won't go out and re-sign Adrian Peterson and sign Todd Gurley and do everything else under the sun. So this is a little bit less about DeAndre Swift's talent, and more about I want to see what they're going to do with him in Detroit Rock City. G, what do you got, man? I see you shaking your head. I see you agreeing. So what do you have on DeAndre?
No, I do agree. I just don't want it to happen. I want him to keep moving forward, because I have a lot of shares in DeAndre Swift. So
I've been
purely speaking from from my own biased
selfishly. You're being selfish.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So
it's not a talent issue.
No, it's not a talent issue at all. But we don't know what this whole team is going to look like at all. Like I have a guy here that's a positive in Jonathan Adams. Now, he was an undrafted free agent, and he just rocked straight into Detroit, and mate, that wide receiving room is terrible.
Hey, so, if you're ready to talk about a positive guy, just go into it, especially if it ties into Detroit.
Oh, no, I didn't. I've got another guy here, mate, that I want to talk about, and I've been on this guy's – I'm actually been driving this guy's train since he came into the NFL, and that's Irv Smith. So we've seen the departure of Kyle Rudolph now, which is probably 12 months too late. Mate, we've seen in small glimpses the talent that Irv Smith has, and I've always compared him, not just because they're similar size, but the way that they play the football is, if you can get the 2015 Jordan Reed out of Irv Smith, is what I think Irv Smith is, you're going to miss. If you don't get on it now and the season starts, you're going to find that his price is going to go up, and you've missed the boat. Now, you got to remember too, that year 2015, who was Reed's quarterback? Kirk Cousins.
Captain Kirk.
So if you look at what Smith has done in the small amount of time that we've seen, he's only dropped 2 catchable balls in 2 years. Now, like he hasn't been hit with 100 targets a game, granted, but his efficiency is incredible. In the last 4 games of the season that Rudolph was out, if you correlate that to an entire season, he would have ended up with 60 catches, 732 yards, and 12 TDs, which would have put him third amongst tight ends. Now, that's the upside of what Irv Smith can give you. Now, they have a Adam Thielen, and they have what we've seen now of Jefferson. Great wide receivers. They need that third one. Zimmer's under the pump. If they don't make the playoffs this year, I think he might be looking for a new job. So the offense has to get moving along. And I believe that Irv Smith is the guy that can help him take that next step up. What else have I written down here? If you look at Kirk Cousins, last year, which surprised me, he was the 4th in attempts to tight ends last year. And he was second in air yards to that position. And this is a very athletic tight end that you're picking up here. So, and then you throw in the fact that they now have the son of throw the ball everywhere, Gary Kubiak's son in Clint, run the offense. So I think you're going to find that the ball's going to be in the air a bit more than it's on the ground. And getting away from that Kevin Stefanski sort of style offense.
Well, and I think you saw that last year. Now, I think part of that was also based on the fact that the defense was a little bit more less good. They were not good in 2020. They had a lot of young guys on the defense in Minnesota. But I do think part of that could be the offense. And the numbers that I like about your boy Irv Smith, because I was doing a little research as you were chatting him up, I like the fact that his yards per route run went from 8.6 as a rookie to 12.2 as a sophomore, and his yards per target went from 6.6 to 8.5. So they're clearly wanting to use him more in that intermediate range, and there is no slot receiver in Minnesota. I mean, obviously Thielen and Jefferson can both play the slot. They can play all three wide receiver positions, quite honestly. But I really see Irv the kind of guy that will play that almost like a big slot receiver. He's big for a receiver, but he's not big for a tight end. He's 6'2", 240. He's not a monster like Gronk. He's not a monster like Kyle Pitts or some of these guys, but he could really be a nice security blanket for your boy Captain Kirk. And I will take it because Kyle Rudolph's gone. I will take it because the offense is opening up a little bit. And I'll take it because you called it out. So, AJ, what do you think about Irv Smith, and who's a guy that you're high on as you got one more for me?
I love the Irv Smith take, and I've been getting a few Irv shares this offseason because he's relatively cheap still. And, if you're in a startup too and you kind of miss the top tight ends, or even if you get one of the top tight ends and you want your second tight end, Irv you can often get quite late too. So
he's a great third-year breakout. Going into year 3 is a great breakout year for tight ends in general.
Yeah, but speaking of tight ends, because I've got another tight end as a riser.
And I haven't even stood up, and you're saying that about me. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. Anthony Ferkser rolls off the tongue like a brick. Anthony Ferkser. Now, here's a guy who's pretty much under the radar, and he's on some waiver wires even. But I don't think that's going to be the case for very much longer, and people just aren't talking about him. But, he finished as the tight end 27 last year, right? So, obviously, that's not very spectacular. 39 receptions, 53 targets, 387 yards, 1 touchdown. But, of course, his main competition in the offense was Jonnu Smith is gone. Jonnu Smith had a 69% of snap share, and Ferkser had 32% of snaps he was on the field for. And Jonnu's numbers last year were 41 receptions from 65 targets, very similar there, 448 yards, so a little bit higher, which you'd probably expect from the tight end one in that offense, but 8 touchdowns. He did also have 2 rushes for 4 yards and another touchdown. So, in total, 9 touchdowns that has gone from that Titans offense, not even mentioning the wide receiver core. So that is really where Ferkser could make a big impact. I mean, not only is he probably going to get more targets and more receptions, more yards, etc., but he only had 1 touchdown last year. So the possibilities, I think, are quite high. Now, you might have been hesitant on Ferkser prior to the draft, but the Titans didn't draft a rookie tight end, right? So they left that position vacant. The only other tight end on the roster is Jeff Swain. So, mic drop on that. And, all reports out of OTAs has been really impressive. Ferkser is busy in OTAs. They're working him, and he looks really, really good.
Mate, he's getting a stack of balls. He is.
You just look at the offense. Obviously, they lost Corey Davis. And you just look at that Titans offense, and I can hear the naysayers right now saying, "Oh, but it's a running offense, AJ." Well, come on. You're going to get AJ Brown there, who people draft as like a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, and tell me that that there's no targets in this offense. That's ridiculous. You've got AJ Brown, and Ferkser probably might be number 2 in the pecking order. Who knows?
And soon to be. Oh, I dropped him.
Maybe. Well, maybe. And even if so, I don't care, because of Jonnu Smith leaving the building. I think there's plenty of opportunity.
Well, I like that. So I was doing a little research again. This is the great part of having 2 co-hosts tonight, is that I have a little time to do a little research on my other monitor for those watching on YouTube. And the Tennessee Titans, even if they get Julio, the Tennessee Titans have the second most vacated targets from 2020. the Tennessee Titans have 215 vacated targets. So Julio could come in and instantly take 120 targets. Hell, he could take 145 targets and still leave somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 targets for Ferkser. And on top of what he got last year, I'm not saying it's all going to go to those guys. They did sign Josh Reynolds, a guy that I'm kind of intrigued by as well. By the way, side note from my research, do you know who had the most vacated targets going into this year? The Detroit Lions. 313 vacated targets.
That's because they all left.
So to think that DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you don't think those guys are going to be target magnets, get the hell out of here. Those guys are going to absolutely feast, especially because Amon-Ra St. Brown, all those guys, Swift, Hawkinson, St. Brown, they all work in the comfort zone that is Mr. Jared Goff. My final guy, I'm going to go with the tight end as well. Let's close this out with a tight end. My guy is Mr. Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett of the Seattle Seahawks. He's playing with a guy in Russell Wilson. And the last time, now, mind you, since then, I'm going to talk about Jimmy Graham in just a second. But since then, before they continued to get injured, you saw serviceable tight end play from guys like Jacob Hollister, Will Dissly, Luke Wilson. And the last time that he had what I would consider to be a competent, athletic tight end in Jimmy Graham, in 3 years, Jimmy Graham averaged 57 catches, 700 yards, and 6 TDs a season in 3 years of Russell Wilson. If you just turn that into not tight end premium points, but if you turn that just into regular PPR points, that's 163 PPR points. Now, 163 PPR points last year would have been good for tight end 7. 2 years ago, it would have been good for tight end 8. And 3 years ago, it would have been good for tight end 6. So to think that, and by the way, his ADP per Fantasy Pros, he is currently going as tight end 25 off the board in a startup right now. So a guy that in 2 QBs, a guy that's worth a flyer. And I posted this earlier on my Twitter at DWZ Memphis, a picture of his screenshot from Player Profiler. An exceptionally dominant college player, an exceptionally dominant athlete. And I'm looking for big things. And by the way, an offensive coordinator that he worked with in L.A. I think the recipe of Russ, the offensive coordinator, the need for a tight end in this offense is going to be great things for Gerald Everett. Now, G, I saw you kind of light up a little bit when I said Gerald Everett. Are you a fan? Not a fan?
Oh, no, I lit up when you talk about another tight end. Because I've actually written down 3 tight ends for positives.
I got you. Okay.
Yes. So, when you mentioned another one, mate, that's another one I forgot about.
You know, tight end is such a barren wasteland of trash.
Exactly.
And you're just grasping at straws. But I want to thank you guys for jumping on with me. It's been great catching up. Now, I know you guys are coming back in a couple of weeks. We're going to do some IDP. Now, G is a great IDP player, but this guy in the Chargers hat right here, I had to get inside his head. I made a move. I'm just going to tell him about a move that I made in a league we're in called Rockolution. It is an IDP league. We start 10 on offense. We start 10 on defense. And I had to think like AJ. I know he was coming up. I know he goes linebacker because he's a very savvy ADP guy. And I had to slingshot in front of him. But then I got G on the way back. I got the guy from Bolton from Kansas. So I got AJ with Parsons, and I got G with Bolton. So what do you guys have for me? Now, I've seen you guys on YouTube. I know you guys are locked down. When can we expect some more Aussie guys content?
Well, we need to. We're going to get Matt Waldman back on for a bit of a post-draft RSP kind of chat. Rookie landing spots and that sort of thing. And we're going to get into our team previews, which is really on me to start getting my butt in the gear and organise. But we'll start getting into those. But yeah, up for an IDP chat for sure. Actually, it'd be good, G, for us to get. I think last year we got the Read and React guys. I think we got Tom Kislinbury on to chat IDP, so that can be good fun. We might schedule something like that as well.
Yeah, and look, you were talking about the Rockolution League, and you did have us down. You knew that what had gone, what was available on offense, and you knew me and AJ, we talk about what we're doing. We don't collaborate or anything, but we both know each other, and we were both going linebackers was our next pick. And I think you were one before or two before AJ, and then I was straight after AJ. And then I rang AJ straight away and said, fucking Randy, he's worked us out. He knows what we're going to do, because that's exactly where we were going. Because you've got to look for where the value is, and the value in the offense had gone, and it was swung around to the defense, and mate, we were going to nail the linebacking position. I started cursing, half an hour before my pick.
That's one thing, is that you can find people even in your own league. Here's a little tip for you. You can find people in your own league that you respect and you want to emulate, because my first foray into IDP was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when we did the league with John and the FF fellas at the time, and Sipes and so many other people. And it was my first one, and I did okay, but I didn't do great. And I started seeing what you guys were doing. And AJ won the league last year, and you won it 2 years ago, or the very first one. So,
and based around defense, really, defense won it for AJ last year, and defense won it for me the year before.
It makes it. I don't want to get too deep into our IDP. I want to save a little, but we'll give a little teaser for people coming back. If you've never played IDP, first of all, it's very maddening. It's very frustrating. The talent at the top positions, especially like defensive end, and if it's like a high-scoring defensive tackle, we're going to get into all of that. So I don't want to ruin. I just want to thank you guys. Again, I didn't have a co-host tonight. I thought I was getting just G, and we made the best of a bad situation, because these poor guys are in lockdown. America just straight up doesn't give a shit. We're just half vaccinated. Hell, we have states, trying to offer bribes to get people to come get vaccinated. We're not going to go down that road, but thank you for taking your lockdown to spend some time with me talking football.
No, mate, I'm glad to come on. Hey, can I just give you a couple of guys that we didn't talk about? I'll just say their names just quickly.
Yeah. Throw it out there.
At the tight end position, for people that are looking for tight ends, Harrison Bryant, someone I think maybe not so much this year, but definitely next year. I think you'll find that David Njoku will be gone.
This is a very pro Harrison Bryant shot, my friend.
Yeah, Austin Hooper, they overpaid for him.
He's a cap casualty next year.
Yeah, without a doubt. And another guy that I've got is, which people probably already have, but he might be floating around. That's Adam Troutman at the Saints. They have no tight ends. Two of them left. Hill left, got picked up, and then retired. I think when he found out he was got picked up by Detroit Lions, and that was Josh Hill. And the other one, obviously, was Jared Cook left the building, so that's left it wide over for Adam Troutman to let's hopefully be the guy that you saw at Dayton. The competition wasn't great, obviously, but he absolutely murdered that conference that he played in, and that's what you have to do if you're good. And he played against lesser competition, 31 touchdowns, 178 receptions, and over 2,000 total yards. That's another guy that in the tight end bracket that made me smile, is someone you can go and have a look.
Yeah, if you're going to get Troutman, you better do it now. He's got a couple of big national name brands here in the States pumping his tires. He's got the fantasy football fellas. Excuse me, that's our old friends Kyle and Seth. The fantasy footballers are talking big about Troutman, as well as Matt Kelly from Roto Underground. So a couple of bigger voices in the industry. So they're definitely high on him, and for good reason. So, G, as always, you're in great company. But prices may be a little higher as the expectation has been. By the way, I don't remember which pod I heard this. I think it was the footballers that Adam Troutman was Pro Football Focus's #1 ranked blocking tight end last year as a rookie. And I found that to be an extremely interesting stat. So coaches like guys who can block. So that's one thing to watch for in camp as well, is guys who can't block at the tight end position, the running back position. they tend to struggle to get reps early. So I'm going to end this one with a positive note. Go get Adam Troutman per G. These guys are not fellow podcasters. These guys are my boys. These guys are like brothers to me. I said they're my brothers from down under. It is AJ, it is G, at Aussie Guys NFL on Twitter. And on behalf of AJ and on behalf of G, I am Memphis, and here at the Dynasty Warzone, we're just here to make the world a better place for fantasy football. Talk to you guys real soon. Thank you.